What's good, YouTube? It's me, Squiddy, back in another video. Today I want to show you guys some cool little Kashtira attacks. I know everyone's sick and tired of the deck, but there are actually some cool things you can still do with the deck, and I want to kind of demonstrate this, because if the deck ends up getting hit on the ban list, I think this could be something that we eventually take over and possibly adapt from the remaining Kashtira engine. So the first couple of things I'm going to talk about is the Odd Eyes package. This is a package of 4 cards that allows you to put 10k damage on board through one Kashtira FENRIR or any one way to get 2 level 7 monster bodies on the board. Now, the way it works is it unfortunately takes 4 slots in the extra deck. You guys may have seen me actually demonstrate this in the feature match at the WCQ in round 7 against John Wilkin. I want to give a shout out to my friend Anthony Ekros for showing me this, but essentially how it works is you have to play 4 monsters: Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon, Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord, and a Gravity Controller. So, these cards have a lot of text to them, but the only real thing that has to be relevant to you right now is the fact that Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon is a monster we want to go into. When this card is sent to the graveyard from the field, you get to special summon out any Odd Eyes monster from your extra deck. So in this case, we special summon out Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, which is essentially a vanilla monster. We don't really care about the text. Now, this is a monster that we more care about. Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord is a monster that you can overlay on top for free, on top of any Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, rather. So you just place it on top a lot like a Zodiac monster, and when it has a Rebellion XYZ monster as a material, this monster can attack up to 3 times during the battle phase. And the way we make this all possible off of the FENRIR alone is by using Gravity Controller, which requires a non-link monster in the extra deck zone, or the extra monster zone rather. So I'm going to demonstrate really quickly how this works off one FENRIR. We're going to go ahead and special summon FENRIR, use the effect to add a Rise Heart. Now, Rise Heart and Kashtira does have the restriction to put us under XYZ summonings only from the extra deck. So that's one thing to keep in mind. If you guys are going for this OTK, make sure you do not use Kashtira Teosis first, nor do you use the effect of Kashtira Rise Heart to special summon from hand, because that's the one that locks you into XYZ monsters from your extra zone. Rather, we're going to use our normal summon here, because this will allow us to get Kashtira Rise Heart onto the board without using that restriction, and the effect to banish to make it level 7 actually does not apply that XYZ restriction. So from here, we're going to banish any Kashtira card, banish the top 3 cards of our opponent's deck, face down, and then that will allow us to get 2 level 7s on board. Again, if you have Kashtira Birth and like a normal summon, or Kashtira Birth and like any other level 7, this does the exact same thing, but I'm just showing you guys the generic line with FENRIR because that's usually how it goes, using just one card. We're going to link off to, we're going to XYZ off to the Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon in the extra deck column. Then from here, we're going to link that off into the Gravity Controller, which will prompt us to trigger the effect of Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon in the graveyard, special summoning out our Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon. From here, we can overlay into the Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord, which allows us to attack 3 times, which is really, really nice. And on top of that, we get the free 1000 damage from Gravity Controller, which also has the benefit of being a Neo-Spacian Grand Mobile in the extra monster zone. This monster, when it attacks another, or battles rather, another monster in the extra monster zone, then you can bounce back both at the start of the damage step. So if you happen to encounter a mirror match where they have Shangri-La in the extra monster zone, you can attack it and then bounce back the Gravity Controller and their Shangri-La, thereby getting rid of it. So your Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord can attack 3 times for a total of 9k. It's really, really devastating to be able to attack for a game out of nowhere, because as we know, Kashtira has a struggle for going for a game a lot of times just with the core engine. Now, the other cool thing is, even if you do not kill your opponent, you can overlay for Zeus in the main phase 2, which gives you a 2 material Zeus regardless of the fact. So that's a really, really nice interaction there. And on top of everything, Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon actually allows you somewhat to play around Nibiru, because when it's sent to the graveyard by any means, you get the effect. So if you are going for the standard line where you have to go to 5 summons to attack for a game under Nib, you could potentially make Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon as your 5th summon. So when they do Nib, when you try to go to battle phase, this will trigger, allowing you still to get out the Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon, which you can overlay for Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon Overlord. And if you have any way to get rid of that opposing Nibiru, say with like a FENRIR or something else, then you can still attack for 9k, which is still game. So this is just a really cool combo I want to show you guys. Yeah. Okay, so the next combo I want to talk to you guys about is with the Phantom Knights Rank Up Magic Launch. This is a quick play spell card that says, during the main phase, target 1 Dark Xyz monster you control with no material. Special summon from your extra deck 1 Dark Xyz material that is 1 rank higher than that monster you control by using it as a material. and if you do, attach this card to it as an additional material. And this is also treated as an XC summon. So why is this card relevant? Well, in our case, we can actually special summon out a powerhouse in the form of DDD Dual Dawn King Kali Yuga, which is a monster that is absolutely broken, because after this card is XYZ summoned for the rest of the turn, other cards and their effects cannot be activated on the field, and other cards' effects on the field are negated. This is not an activated effect. It's a lot like Outer Entity Azathoth. So the minute this card hits the table, all cards are negated. The effect is immediately applied. There's no way to negate this as long as it hits the table. It also has the added benefit of a quick effect. Once per turn, you can detach the material from this card, destroy all spells and traps on the field. So when you're playing against decks like Labyrinth or back row heavy decks, this has a quick play heavy storm. So effectively, when you get this out, you're probably going to win the game because you're negating all your opponent's cards for the turn, effectively skipping their turn. You get the heavy storm in the end phase if they set any defensive traps or spell cards, and then on the follow-on crackback, you can just kill them. And this is made really, really easy, obviously, first and foremost by Arise Heart. The fact that Arise Heart is a actual Dark Xyz monster, you can make really easily just off one unicorn with the standard line, obviously going into Teosis, Kashtira FENRIR, adding the Rise Heart, and then banishing 3. From here, using the effect will allow you easily to get in a Rise Heart on the table, and you can do this by playing around Nib as well if you choose to, if you happen to open this card. From here, you go off into the Arise Heart, which is really, really cool, because Arise Heart obviously has 3 materials, but during your opponent's main phase, what you can actually do after they use their first action is detach 3 materials and then target something, and then from there, chain the effect of rank up magical launch, because at the time that you activate for cost by detaching, Arise Heart actually has no materials. From here, we can instantly summon out the Kali Yuga, attach this to material, and then on the new chain, once it resolves, this will immediately apply, meaning that all effects are negated. So really, really cool. In fact, actually not even on a new chain. The moment this card is summoned, all other effects become negated, which means that your Rise Heart effect is probably negated as well, but it doesn't matter because all of your opponent's cards are instantly negated anyways. So just really, really cool interaction there. And if you happen to not have a way to get into the Arise Heart, what you can actually do is easily do what we demonstrated in the previous combo by making use of the Odd Eyes engine, because of the fact that Rebellion Dragon happens to be a Dark XYZ monster that you can summon out. So in this case, if we just have a FENRIR and a rank up magic launch, what we can actually do is instantly summon the FENRIR, add a copy of the Rise Heart using his special ability, and then do what we did previously in the last combo, which is normal summon the Kashtira Rise Heart, use the effect to banish a card to make it level 7. And then from here, what we can actually do is instantly overlay this for our Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon in the extra monster column. And then from there, we can link that off into the Gravity Controller using the effect of Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon to summon out a copy of the Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon. And this being a Dark Monster XYZ that is rank 7 and also has no materials, means that we're going to be able to set the magic launch and then use that in our opponent's main phase. So it's really, really cool interaction there. Unfortunately, this does play into Nibiru, but it's just another toolbox option when you do not have the way to play into a Rise Heart on your turn. So it still gives you the Kali Yuga. Really, really cool interaction. One thing to note with this rank up magic launch is it's a little bit volatile, because if your opponent is playing cards like Book of Moon, this will turn it off if it's chained directly. Also, Forbidden Lance does turn this off as well, because it does affect the monster that it targets. So just key things to note there. But if you are playing cards like SAURAVIS, which we played in the feature match, you can actually protect your monster from those cards that target it and still resolve the rank up magical launch. So really, really cool interaction there. But yeah, it's really, really effective, because against a lot of back row decks, this deck does struggle sometimes. So being able to have the auto win button can actually be very helpful. And it's basically comparable to Eradicator Epidemic Virus in my opinion, but it depends on how you guys decide to mold your deck, depends on how you guys decide to play. And I would definitely recommend checking this out, testing it out, and seeing if it's good or not. Alright, so this is a really neat interaction that we discovered with Outer Entity Entis, and it's the sole reason we chose to play this card over something like a Fossil Wagon or a Fossil Skull Knight. So how it works is it actually nullifies the Triple Tactics talent, which is a main board breaker card against your board when we have something like an Arise Heart and a FENRIR and or other monsters. One single talent can crack that entire board, because we're forced to banish our own Arise Heart, and then they can still steal something like a FENRIR. Well, when you have Entis, this actually prevents it, because what happens is you can chain the effect of Kashtira or Arise Heart by using the effect here to detach your cards. And then from there, you target your own Arise Heart when they do use in response to the tactics, banishing itself. And then Entis will hit the graveyard. They're going to be able to steal what remaining monster we have on the board. And then on a new chain, because Entis hit the graveyard, we can use the effect to pop the monster they steal. So even though we lose our board in that situation, we're still dealing with that monster that they steal, which prevents it from being a worse situation. For example, in something like the mirror match, where they steal the FENRIR and they can full combo. So I really like that interaction with Entis. And the other thing is, when your opponent uses something like an Infinite Impermanence or Dark Ruler No More while you have a Rise Heart on the table, you can still detach Elder Entity Entis, which would then hit the grave, and then use the effect on a new chain to pop something. So it effectively makes it so you still have a pop even under Dark Ruler or Infinite Impermanence, which is why I like this card a lot. I would heavily recommend you guys testing this, especially because there's a lot of space in the extra deck zone. It's a very versatile card, and I really like it a lot as one of the first attaches to the Arise Heart after something like an Infinitrack in the blind matchup, so we're protected from cards like the runic spells. And then the last card I want to kind of talk about is SAURAVIS, the Ancient and Ascended. Again, shout out to my friend Anthony Aircross who discovered this card, but it's a hand trap that a lot of people have forgotten about. And it says, quick effect, when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a monster you control, you can discard this card, negate the activation, which is actually really powerful in a mid-range metagame where a lot of things target. For example, all the runic spell cards, they happen to target your Arise Heart, so you can protect it that way. When you have this card in Forbidden Lands, plus like an Infinitrack, your Arise Heart effectively becomes like an untargetable Towers monster, which is insane. Now, in the mirror match too, it stops a lot of things. There are even cards like that a lot of decks are playing, like Book of Moon, you can stop. Infinite Impermanence, you can stop because it targets. Enemy Controller, you can stop, which is a blowout in the mirror match because they have to tribute a monster, target yours, and then they effectively go -1 on that trade-off, which is huge. And Arise Heart obviously targets as well. And another thing is FENRIR actually targets. So if they do go FENRIR and try to attack your Arise Heart and use the effect to banish, you can negate with SAURAVIS, and then the attack will go through, so they'll crash the Arise Heart. It also works on monsters in the mirror match. So Big Eye, for example, which Lance does not stop. This is a really clutch, crucial card because a lot of times they have to go all in with their investment to make something like a Big Eye to target your Arise Heart, and then from there you can chain the effect of SAURAVIS, which turns off their Big Eye, meaning they're stuck with a dead Big Eye and we get to keep our monsters. So this is just a really cool card that I like a lot. I feel like it could be definitely playable in a lot of other decks if the metagame shapes up where there are a lot of targeting cards, where the game is like really mid-range grindy and there are a lot of targeting back rows to deal with. So this is just another card I thought you guys should definitely experiment with. That's all I really had for the video. If you guys have any comments or suggestions on cards that we can also play that are obscure, that might be good in the metagame, definitely let me know in the comments below. Other than that, we'll see you guys in the next video, and thanks a lot for tuning in.